Good evening, everyone. I am calling the Peace River Town Council special meeting of Monday, August 11th to order at 5 p.m. So we have an agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or deletions?
No, there isn't no issue.
Thank you. Would someone care to move us along? Councilor Good?
I'll move that council adopt the agenda of the August 11th, 2025 special council meeting as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor? Great, it is carried. Okay, and we do not have any counselors on line right now, right? Okay, so our first item and only item really is a public hearing with respect to bylaw number 2178, the land use bylaw. So we've had a few slight changes in the way hearings are conducted according to our new procedural bylaw. So I will first of all start by, I declare that the public hearing with respect to bylaw number 2178, the land use bylaw, is open at 5:01. And I'll review the process of the public hearing just so we're on the same page. So our meeting procedures bylaw directs that first we will hear a presentation from administration to briefly introduce the matter before us and provide background information. If it was someone other than admin presenting, the individual who requested the bylaw or resolution subject of the public hearing would be given an opportunity to speak for a maximum of 15 minutes. Members of the public, after our admin presentation, will be given an opportunity to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. The order of speaking shall rotate between those in favor and those opposed. And when coming up to speak, please ensure that you give your name, location of residence, and indicate how you were impacted and if you are for or against the matter before us. All speakers are reminded to keep their comments respectful and mindful of the time. And once everyone has had an opportunity to speak, I will declare the public hearing closed. So I will now call on the Director of Infrastructure and Development, standing in for the Manager of Planning and Development, to introduce the matter before us.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, I think so.
Good evening, council. So tonight we're here to talk about bylaw 2178. It's a comprehensive rewrite of the land use bylaw. So this bylaw would replace the existing land use bylaw 1891. So for a bit of background, we've been working on this as administration, I believe, since 2018. It's sort of when we started some of the initial consultations on what would be required to update the land use bylaw. The current land use bylaw has been in effect with some changes since about 2012. Which is sort of the last time it was gone through kind of a comprehensive review process. A land use bylaw is a requirement just from a statutory perspective of the Municipal Government Act. We're required to have one. It kind of lays out roles and responsibilities for the development authorities. It includes details regarding applications. It identifies where a permit is required or where a permit is not required. It creates regulations related to all developments that must be followed and creates land use districts and allows for specific regulations to be created for each one of those districts. In our case, it can also, or it does outline setback requirements, allows us to do enforcement beyond just issuing a stop order or going through processes in the MGA. It allows us to deal with all of that. And I think I said it when we brought forward the bylaw for first reading. A good, clear bylaw is really important for a community. It allows us as administration to make decisions and make them consistently in the same way. And it also allows developers to have the information so that they can understand whether it's going to be a yes before they ever apply. So if it's clear, it's well written, and it's consistent, then it makes it a lot easier for our business community to make decisions and our homeowners to make decisions about whether to do development and growth. Administration has done sort of a number of engagements, kind of starting at the beginning of 2025, with the draft bylaw. We've made changes to that draft bylaw as we've gone through, but the stuff includes a public survey which was sent out to the community. Anybody in the community or anybody that was affected could review and respond to that survey. We included information on the land use bylaw and utility inserts. We held an open house here at the town office on February 19th. Our staff attended farmers markets, spring parade of programs, and the trade fair to share information on the land use bylaw. We sent information to our neighboring communities and asked for referrals and their feedback. We sent it to contractors, realtors, developers, and key landowners in the community. Through the process, we've been posting about the land use bylaw as we've been making changes as it's come up for discussion. And we also sent it, I did a bunch of sessions, I think there were 2 or 3 with the Municipal Planning Commission to kind of go over the changes in the new land use bylaw with one of the development authorities for the community. We've prepared a what we heard report and a summary of key changes. We did make changes based on that feedback that we got in the May 12th council meeting. So if anybody wants to go and look back and see some of the comments from the survey specifically and the sessions that we held, that information is up on our webpage. You can access it through Civic Web and look for that specific meeting. We provided the draft bylaw for feedback in June with major changes. And then we brought it forward for first reading in July. So this has been a very transparent process. We've tried to engage the community and key stakeholders through the process. The new bylaw or the refreshed bylaw includes some major changes. It combines residential districts. So instead of having 6 or 8 low density residential zones, we have a single residential 1 zone, permitting single homes, duplexes, and accessory dwellings. We've created a new residential 6 district, which is sort of like rural acreages for those existing properties or future developments. We've updated some of the Main Street development rules to adjust the building height requirements on Main Street, reducing the minimum from 2 stories to a 1.5 story facade to encourage development on Main Street. We've added some procedures or clarified some situations where businesses can relocate in the community within commercial or industrial buildings without requiring a development permit to try and reduce some red tape, which is a huge thing. That's a thing that will always surprise. There are many situations where it's still required to get a development permit, but if it's a permitted use and it's already developed and there's already building and you don't have to make any changes, if you're moving your business from one location to a location where it could already be an approved use, you do not need to require a development permit, for example. So it just makes it a little easier for our businesses to grow or find new spaces in the community that way. We've added rules to enable patios and established patios on private property without development permits, as long as they're following the regulations that are laid out for that specific use. We've included sections on solar panels because that's a thing that we do have some inquiries about and permits in progress. We've updated the fence regulations, setting maximum fence heights, i.e. 1 meter in front yards or 1.9 meters in rear yards. To establish clear expectations and maintain neighborhood aesthetics. So your neighbor can't come in and build a 12-foot fence. Without going through some hoops or asking for a variance. We've provided storage set containers as accessory structures in commercial, industrial, and institutional areas with limitations in downtown zones. We are still continuing to prohibit them in residential areas except for during construction projects. We've limited residential properties to a maximum of 1 RV, and there are guidelines on sort of placement to maintain neighborhood character. That's a departure. Our current land use bylaw doesn't have any regulation on that. We've removed minimum parking requirements for most uses in downtown areas and streets, except for apartments and hotels, to kind of leverage existing parking and make it easier to develop in downtown. We've allowed on-street parking adjacent to a development site to count towards parking requirements for public and commercial uses. Which is a departure because we used to have to require you to have only on-site parking. Again, we're trying to find ways to enable development and minimize costs for developers to do this while still trying to maintain something. So there are areas where we have minimum parking requirements, but instead of having to meet that exclusively on site, you might be able to use some street parking to meet that objective. We've introduced bike parking requirements for apartments, commercial and public developments. As we get bigger, we will see alternative transport being used by more and more people. We've modified our public notification process in the bylaw, including notifying neighbors before certain decisions are made and posting results online. We've established clear criteria for evaluating discretionary use and variance development permit applications. They basically created tables that say, if you're looking at this kind of variance or this kind of discretionary use, these are the kinds of things that you should be asking about to make it clearer for both our developers and to make us consistent as administration to make sure we're not asking for unreasonable things all the time. In making all of these changes, and it is a very extensive reread of this bylaw. I feel guided by some core project principles. One is to reflect the Peace River context. This is a bylaw that has been written for Peace River, in Peace River, by Peace River, to align with our planning frameworks as best as possible, the IDP, the MDP, and area structure plans. There are going to have to be some updates that kind of flow through this due to some of the changes, but we'll follow through with those going forward. Follow best practices, be clear and purposeful, be enforceable, and simplify and improve development processes. We're not immune to the complaints that the community has had regarding our development processes. We also have concerns. We've been working on that to streamline things and improve them. And this is a big step in that direction. In terms of advertising for tonight's public hearing, we've published it on the town's webpage. We've posted it on that town's Facebook page or social media. So July 18th, July 28th, August 4th, and in the notice of special meeting posted August 6th. We posted on a public bulletin board at the town office on July 17th. We've advertised in the South Peace News for the weeks of July 23rd and 30th. And we've included a separate insert for the public hearing in the July 2025 utility. So we've tried to make sure that everybody who could attend or who wanted to attend had the ability to be here tonight. Prior to first reading, we had received written feedback from our neighboring municipalities and the Mackenzie Municipal Services Agency. Relevant comments were incorporated into the version of the bylaw presented for first reading. At the time of the writing of the report, we hadn't received any written submissions regarding the bylaw to our development inbox. So I'm aware of anything at this point in time. And that's all I've kind of got for see.
Okay, thank you. So I will now call upon members of the public to speak. Reminder to please clearly state your name, location of residence, and keep your presentation within the prescribed 5-minute time limit. So I do see people in the audience. Are you, some of you wishing to speak? Okay. So, and if you could please indicate if you're in favor or opposed, because I'm supposed to rotate between the two.
Sure. All right, so my name is Brandon Deuce. I own the Great Canadian Dollar Store downtown, the North End Ready Mart in the north end of Peace River, and a property development and construction company called Property Management and Construction. So I am in favor of the land use bylaw with a couple caveats that I wanted to mention. I had written my thoughts down and I sent them to a couple of the counselors back in February, and yeah, some of them were talked about, some of them weren't, so I thought I'd just read some of the information that I had sent forward regarding some of the points in the land use bylaw. So point number 1, I guess, is 5.2.4, which affects the dollar store actually. It says a minimum of 50% of ground floor commercial, office, and retail facades fronting onto a public right of way, other than a rear lane shall have clear glazing. Glazing is not permitted to be tinted. So right now we have they're called landscape designs on the front of our business. So this is something that is mandated by our franchise. So if you have windows, they like them to be done up. So I think there needs to be a little bit more consideration given to this aspect as to the marketing part of businesses. The goal should not be to make every business look the same. Businesses in general, and I'm speaking from someone who has a marketing degree, wants to stand out, have someone take notice of them. If you're doing a new development, windows are something that, you know, are a key element that people can look at as they walk by. When we first moved the dollar store into its current location and we revitalized that building when it had been vacant for 17 years, one of the biggest comments we got was how beautiful the windows were. Now they're 6 years older, they're looking a little bit like faded and stuff, and we've had some break-ins, and we have not replaced those landscape designs because of the break-ins. So that's a whole separate issue. But it is something that I think needs to be reconsidered and maybe put some different aspects on. Another thing to consider is there are some regulations as well as pot shops, sex shops, that sort of thing, that require windows to be completely frosted. So that's something that I think needs to be also considered. Moving on, 5.2.13, internally illuminated projecting signs shall not be permitted. Does this mean someone's illuminated sign on the inside of their business shining out, an open sign? The Ready Mart has an EGLC line that is governed by provincial law that we have to have in our window shining out if we are selling lotto. So I think there needs to be a little bit of more consideration given to that aspect as well. 5.2.16, fascia signs should be located above the storefront windows. It says should be, not must be. So this, I think, on one hand is good. However, I don't like a bylaw that leaves something open to interpretation. Who's to say that, yes, this building was okay, but another building is not okay to have a placement of a sign? It just leaves, I think, the town open to conflict. Many professional organizations are often in single floor buildings with fascia signs to the side of the door. Think of law offices, that sort of thing. Moving on, 6.13.6. Commercial developments located adjacent to apartment buildings within this district or adjacent to other residential districts shall be designed and screened in order to mitigate their impact upon adjacent residential properties to the satisfaction of the development officer or municipal planning commission. So if built today, would this require Matt's Pizza in the North End to build a fence or to be screened in, or the Ready Mart, because it is both on a corner lot and surrounded by 3 sides that are residential districts? So if so, how does this fall into the SEPTED aspect of property management? Is it smart to have a commercial building screened / fenced, hidden for the purpose of hiding a food establishment or a gas station or a commercial business from a residential area when it could make it a target of crime? So that's something that we maybe should consider as well. Moving on, 7.9.24 and 7.16, landscape securities. One of the biggest aspects of properties, my company properties business is landscape design. We completed last year a very large landscape project for a local organization. I won't say who, but the cost was over $300,000. So if that was to be built with this bylaw in place, they would need to have ponied up 100% of that $300,000. Now, most of our contracts that we give out indicate that the plants we maintain them for 2 years. And in this bylaw, part A of that, the release of security will be dependent on plant material being alive, thriving, and having been consistently maintained over the previous 2 growing seasons. So the project that I'm talking about that we performed had a 2-year build. And now we have to maintain the landscaping for 2 years after the build has been completed. So the town is going to sit on $300,000 for 4 years of somebody else's money. So I understand where they're coming from as far as making sure that that's done. But when we have done other projects in other municipalities, that has been waived or has been in a contract that said they would put a lien or a caveat on the project should the landscaping not be completed to what the development permit had said it was supposed to be for. So that's something I think that needs to be looked at as well. Because as someone who develops properties, if you're telling me that you're gonna sit on my $100,000 for 4 years, that would be like, sorry, I'm going to Fairview or, Grand Prairie, someplace like that. And I'm not sure 100% what other municipalities have. I have seen some that are asking for this and some that are not. So, but to me, it just seems like we're putting more rules in that, are basically defining that we're not open for business. Like, let's put as many roadblocks in front of people as we can. Accessory dwelling parking, 8.2.1 and 8.94. The parking shall not be accommodated on the street and shall not be at the expense of the soft landscaping requirements of this bylaw. Parking may be allowed in tandem, provided that the parking for the principal residence does not block the parking for the accessory dwelling unit and vice versa. So I guess my biggest problem with this is we own several rental properties, some that we would put accessory dwellings in it if this went through. So we're going to allow an additional unit on a property, but not allow any leniency for parking. I'm thinking of many properties that are in the north end. My next door neighbor doesn't even have a front driveway, so they park on the street. So they would not be able to do this because where are they gonna park? So even though they have a large backyard. So you can say you have an extra dwelling but can't park on the street. It isn't really realistic. Considering large centers, I was in Edmonton at a concert last weekend, and around the Commonwealth Arena, they have parking permits. You can't park there unless you have a permit. So perhaps you should consider permitting additional parking spots so that there isn't just everybody parking anywhere. And I'm also thinking about the apartments that are in the north end. Everybody parks on the street. You go down that main street there and there's vehicles everywhere. And I guess my question as well is, how are you even gonna police this? Are you gonna knock on people's doors and see who's parked there, who belongs to what house? It just seems like a cumbersome project. 8.2.2, consistent with subsection 8.1.5, the total combined area of all accessory buildings, including accessory dwelling units, shall not exceed 20% of the site area. I live on a pie-shaped lot in the north end. And by going by 20%, the shed that I have there would be too big because I have a very large front yard and a very tiny backyard. So I have a holiday trailer parking spot and a shed beside it. So I measured it out and my shed is barely within the 20% of the back area. So I would not be able to do that. So, in my personal opinion, I'd like to see this increase possibly to 50%. Especially if you're building a unit that someone's going to be living in. 8.3.2, bed and breakfast. No food preparation shall be conducted within any bedroom made available for rent. We have rental units, so this is how it applies to me. This is pretty much an unenforceable bylaw, I believe. If bylaw members were wandering around on my property and looking in my bedroom windows to see if someone was cooking in there, I'd have a big problem with it. If you have something that is a bed and breakfast or something like that, that should be left to Alberta Health Services to govern, not the town of Peace River. 8.12.5, fleet vehicles should be screened from view from adjacent properties and streets using fencing, landscaping, and other approved methods. Seems almost contradictory, again, to the suggested guidelines put forth in SEPTED, which I believe was only mentioned twice in the whole 258-page document. So, for example, the Ready Mart is zoned neighborhood commercial, but it is in a residential district. If U-Haul continues to be operated out of that location, as it has been for the last 10 years, would it now be required to be landscaped or put a fence around the property? There seems to be a lot of detail going into trying to make things look good without considering the criminal or practical aspect of it, which needs to be given significant thought as thefts are on the rise. I'm getting to the end of my list, I promise. 8.14.4, a home-based business shall not involve the retail sale of goods within the dwelling or display of goods upon the premises. I understand that town admin is trying to prevent a house from turning into a storefront, but a home-based business by definition involves the retail sale of goods within the dwelling. Thinking of Pampered Chef, Sensi, the Bodhi Tree, all of them have products in stock in their home. So this bylaw goes against the very definition of what a home-based business is. 8.16.1, recreational vehicle parking. A recreational vehicle parked or stored in a residential district shall not accompany or obstruct access to any parking stalls. So my house has 2 parking stalls in the front. I own a holiday trailer and a quad, and if I wanted one of my designated parking spots in my yard that I pay taxes on, so long as it meets the size requirements and doesn't stick out on the road or the sidewalk, I think it should be left there. I 100% will not pay to park my little holiday trailer in a storage facility when I can park it in my driveway when all I have is a truck and a trailer. So, you know, I have a nice house in the north end. I pay handsomely for property taxes. And I just think it's a big overstep to try and say what you can and can't park in your 2 spots. So moving on, 8.19.6, the development authority may require an irrevocable letter of credit, bank draft, or certified check from a recognized Canadian financial institution to the value of the estimated cost of all or proposed work activity, including final grading and landscaping, to ensure that such work is carried out with reasonable diligence. I can't stress enough how much this will be ill received by developers. I realize the municipalities require this, as we have developments in other municipalities and counties and have always had it waived in form of a caveat if work is not completed. Now, I'm sure this can all be worked out with town admin. You guys are a favorable bunch to work with. So I'm thinking, you know, this is something that maybe we could work out, but as a developer who's just reading the bylaws and thinking about this, it just, you know, it's just another roadblock. Last on my list is 12.4.1. The development authority shall, within 20 days after receipt of the development permit application, determine whether the application is complete or incomplete. Perhaps it's my type A personality coming through here, but 20 days to determine if an application is complete or incomplete seems like a long time for someone who's trying to get going and trying to get something happen. Many businesses, I know from sitting on the Economic Development Committee, have complained in the past about it taking too long to get a response from town admin, so I'd like to see a tighter timeline on this. So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Oh, that was quite concise. Councilors, do you have any questions of clarity for Mr. Bruce?
Not a question of clarity, but more of a comment, especially with the audience in the background. So the acronym SEPTED stands for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And it's if you Google it, it's quite the intensive crime prevention program.
Any questions of clarity for Mr. Deuce? Councilor Good?
Just because as fast as I was typing here, which was not rocket, I didn't get all of your references. Do you have a copy of what you presented? Appreciate it very much. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for looking through this very thoroughly. Okay, do we have someone who would speak in opposition? It's kind of odd here because sometimes you're in favor of certain parts of this bylaw and opposed to others, so I'll take the next person who would like to speak.
Evening. My name is Eldon Simpson. I live in one.
You just need to press the red button or the button and the red light comes on.
There we go.
You're live.
Is that go into my 5 minutes? Yeah. After the light comes on. My name is Eldon Simpson. I live at 13601 92nd Street. Which for reference, it's hard to never go by addresses. I'm 10 houses north of your water treatment plant on 140th Avenue out in Shaftesbury Terrace. I'm here to speak, as I was, I think it was in June when spoke to the portion of the bylaw with respect to recreational vehicles. It's 8.16. Not opposed to what you have, but I must say, I think it's a very, to be kind, a very timid approach and a significant underachievement from what I expected after our discussions last time. Again, before I go back to basic principles, one of the councillors had suggested that perhaps this part of the land use bylaw should be a separate bylaw. I had provided you one from Calgary last time as a precedent for you to view. And this one, as I say, is very brief. I think falls short. Basic principles, as I understand, why you have a bylaw at all with respect to RVs in the community is that one, that the residential neighborhood should not become a RV campsite area. And two, they ought not to be RV storage areas. Notwithstanding, I realize I may be disagreeing and I do respectfully disagree with the gentleman who spoke before me. This bylaw unfortunately fails on both of those points. It may be thought that we don't need to be concerned about our residential areas becoming RV camping areas. But let me tell you about just this weekend on 92nd Street, just from your water treatment plant to 136th Avenue, which is notionally 4 blocks, is not very far, but Thursday or by Friday morning, I won't give an address, but partway down that street before 136, there's a 40-foot camper, my estimate, stepped it off, RV, parked on the street, taking up about 2/3 of the lane. Well, there was a cord running across to the house, I assume, curtains pulled, I assume it was being lived in for the weekend. Then that stayed till Sunday, stayed all weekend, left Sunday evening. Then on Sunday, just across the street, another one, 40-foot, same thing, plugged in. And this evening, or today, now, those two have left, but another one has moved in a couple doors down from your water treatment plant. I don't know that you have anything in any bylaw that can do anything about it. This one certainly doesn't do anything about it. But I can see, maybe I have missed an enforcement clause somewhere in the bylaw to deal with using a residential area as a RV campsite. But if so, I've missed it. This bylaw doesn't seem to have anything there. So first of all, it doesn't prevent that sort of misuse of a residential neighborhood as an RV campsite. Ergo, this weekend, 3 of them, and this week, 3 of them on our street alone. So the other point I have is that once you have a RV on a lot, it doesn't have any application in it that I can see to the use that you can make of it. Can you live in it? Can you camp in it? What can you do with it? Doesn't seem to have any anything aimed at that sort of what I would consider misuse. The part about the second principle, that being the residential neighborhood ought not to be an RV storage. So when you think about it, you think about a traffic law such as a speed limit on the highway, 100 kilometers. That means everybody can drive 100 kilometers. Some people may or may not, some might even exceed it. But the bylaws that set up means that every house, every lot, every residential house, lot in this community can have an RV stored on it. Is that what you want? An RV storage community? You say, well, if it became that much, became a problem, we could deal with it, but it's pretty hard to unwind things once you allow them to go. So, in my view, that the bylaw probably, my recommendation should probably not be part of the land use bylaw. If it is, it should be a lot more extensive. Or you start again and do one separate from the land use bylaw rather than a couple clauses as you have it in there now. If you really feel that these RVs should be in town during summer, like the Calgary bylaw, and you want to put some limits on, you could easily say that, okay, as of October 1st, 2026 or 2027, they're not going to be stored in residential areas. So the bylaws we have as I see it in the land use bylaw, is quite a disappointment from what I expected. It almost seems like it's been treated as an afterthought and not really given the due attention that it should. Because communities bit by bit become less livable by letting things go. And to me, this bylaw just doesn't do what it needs to do to deal with what I see a problem and a growing problem. Particularly, as I say, I don't even see any enforcement if it is being broken. Perhaps you can direct me to something in the bylaw where I've missed it, but I don't see it. Subject to those comments and subject to any questions you have, those are my submissions.
Thank you. Counselors, any questions, clarity? Counselor DeFoy?
Yeah, just,
Doesn't like one of us.
yeah, probably that one there.
Do you want me to shut it off? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so just for clarity, you had spoken about RVs, but they were parked on the street. They were there for 3 days and then they're gone. Another one comes in.
Sorry, this evening you mean? Or when I spoke in June?
No, this evening.
Yeah, okay, right. Sorry, right. One was, I can't remember if it's Thursday evening or I know it's a Friday morning, but full weekend. The other one just Sunday. The other one's there now. I can't say that I have any identifying mark on it, but I know it's in the same place. And appears to be the same one that stayed there for like a week on the street last year, right on the corner where you have to truck, and it's a bit obstructed because of the growth on that corner. But anyway, yes, this weekend.
So the other clarity I would ask for then is if it happened last year for a week to 4 days and it happened a little bit this year, are these people that are actually storing their RV or are these people from out of town coming to visit? Or
I don't know. That wouldn't be fair for me to comment. I don't know. I have some suspicions, but that wouldn't be fair.
And the last question I have, you had used a word in your presentation about, it has to do with compliance. So for instance, listening to Mr. Dews about, he has his trailer, he's on the north end, parking's a little tighter there compared to the area that you live in. He puts his trailer on his one spot in his driveway. Now, is there issues in that area as well? Cause you used it, I can't remember exactly what the word was, but are there RVs being stored on non-developed lots? Did I hear you say that this time around or last time around? Then
Last time around, you're back for about 6 weeks or so. So first of all, you're right. The way your bylaw reads right now, that this gentleman disagreed with, that he should be able to park in his parking stall. You're on his driveway. That's how your bylaw reads right now, and which he disagrees with. I'm sorry, the bylaws it reads now does not permit it to occupy a parking stall. He disagrees with that. I disagree with the whole thing. I'd rather they're not stored in town at all. And your question, so that's the first part. The second part was, yes, to have your bylaw officer take a drive around 130, the loop from 135th to 134th Avenue off of 92nd Street and look at the undeveloped lot that's beginning to look like Hilltop Records number 2.
Okay.
That answers.
Thank you. Councilors, any further questions or clarity?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Would someone else like to come forward to speak? Okay, if not, then I would ask if Mr. Fisher, do you have any concluding statement you would like to make from your presentation?
No, well, yeah, well, I think that, the land use bylaw isn't going to make everyone happy, first and foremost, right? We're trying to find the right balance to set and create the character of the community that we want. So I think as administration, we've tried to find a pretty pragmatic balance. To a lot of the comments from Mr. Hughes, most of those concerns can actually be fair. So if you would apply for a variance, and it would go through it, you see, it's not administration, but it's those decisions, so they're over in the document, it's council. Regarding the securities, it's not just cash, we do have other options on the table. Pretty common as you get the bigger centers to do it. I think we made some big changes on that before the last edition. So if your comments are from the February version, take a look at the more recent one. I think what administration would like to do is actually develop a policy concurrent with the bylaws. This is probably something a little bit in the future, but that would allow us to create some variances and deviate them to right size securities. Because if you do get it wrong, they agree, it can make things a lot more challenging. It's a lot easier to change a policy than the bylaw to make sure that it's right size. So that's where I think we would take that. And certainly the securities piece is dealt with during the development agreement, which is registered.
Thank you. Okay, so barring no further questions of clarification from council, at this time I will say that seeing that we've had all presentations have been completed, I will now declare the public hearing closed at 5:43. So thank you, everyone. And now in the agenda, we move to current business, which is bylaw number 2178, the land use bylaw. And Mr. Fisher, are you speaking to this?
Yes, good evening. Again, so for this request for decision, basically I was hoping that council would make a decision as to when you would like us to bring back the bylaw for second and third reading, or if you would like to have another discussion to answer or look into some of these questions, direct us to bring the bylaw back to a GMP meeting, to work through some of those, the one in September. That would be, I guess, we've got kind of those two options. There is some outstanding work that still needs to be done in the bylaw. There's some figures that need to be added and some numbering that needs to be updated. So we're not ready to give it second and third reading this evening. We could do those updates if there are not any major changes for the 25th meeting that's scheduled for, we could look at one of the meetings in September.
So just a question, with respect to some of the comments that have been brought forth tonight, if we put this to second reading, at second reading, some of those questions would be answered if they've not already been, or how does that process go?
So we can amend the bylaw in second reading, right? Or bring forward with an updated one and say, instead of adopting this, we should give this updated bylaw second reading. I think that if there's things that you want to change or dive deeper into, we probably, aside from the ones that have been already identified, we should probably have a discussion about that to get clarity. I don't know if Mr. Deuce's comments were he said he sent them to council in February. I don't know if they were forwarded to our team at all. I did. Yes.
They were forward.
They were forwarded. So then there's a good chance that if they made it into Miss Morty's hands, that we've worked through some of those and landed on some pragmatic things. Like I said, there's the ability to apply for variances, which would go through NBC. And there are abilities, we've revised, like I said, securities. I think we did that in the June meeting, before we came back to give it first reading in July. And we talked about securities and made changes to that area.
So admin, a question for you, just for, make sure we're in the right process here. The question was brought up about tints on windows and stuff like that. So is it at this point we would ask questions about that, or do we have to wait till second reading and ask her questions? What's the proper process is what I'd like to know.
This is your time to ask it.
Okay. Then we'll go for it. Counselor Good.
Yeah, your worship, I'm not sure I want to get into the nitty gritty right now, but, I would like some time to review some of the comments that were made tonight. I mean, next meeting is a week away. It gives us time 2 weeks away, it gives us time to take a look at it and to go through, because there's some areas I'd like to look at and review, take a look at the comments that were made, review what the bylaw says on those things and get a bit better understanding of it. So, I mean, I've read it a number of times, but having said that, there were things brought up from, okay, it's a question I should look at. So what I would like to see tonight is basically that, make the motion that we bring it to the next meeting, because if you bring it for second and potentially third, you don't have to do third the same night. You can say yes to the second and no to the third. So it gives us 2 weeks to take a look and do the, how would I call it, sober second thought, third thought, fifth thought. And I'd appreciate that. That's personal, but that's me.
Thank you. Counselor Carr.
I kind of like the idea of breaking the RV park note as a separate bylaw as well. Having listened to Mr. Simpson and so on, and having driven to the areas that he has discussed, it is a problem in some parts of town and maybe needs to be a little more fulsome than what is indicated. I just think it needs to be looked at and maybe considered, because I do think it is a little light. In fact, I'd say a lot light.
Right, so parking on the roadway, somebody having it on the road then parked is a different bylaw. That's our traffic bylaw, not the land use bylaw piece. Our current land use bylaw is silent on RVs. It doesn't give clarity one way or the other. So this is tightening, right now, Councilor Carter. And I think there's a risk if you go too far, because we are a northern community. Lots of people will have RVs, lots of people will have hardtop campers that they use or have just in case there is a community-wide emergency. That's a very critical piece that lots of families would rely on to get out safely. I think that saying, no, you can't have this on your property at all would be a miss for a community.
Counselor Carr.
That isn't really where my concern lies. My concern lies, and I'll be specific, is the lot that he spoke of that is an undeveloped lot that is being used for, when I drove by, there were dump trailers, there were boats, there were like, I think maybe we need to focus more on the undeveloped than what you're allowed to store on it than just being a free for all.
So I believe I am aware of which property you're speaking to, and I think that our CPO is dealing with that through the unsightly bylaw right now. It is going through a legislative process.
Since we're on the recreational lot business, I would like admin to, double check the definitions on page 13 of the bylaw, or 32 of our notes here. It talks about residential districts and a maximum of 2 recreational vehicles. And then on the section Mr. Deuce mentioned on page 134, the 8.16, it's talking about a maximum of 1 recreational vehicle. And I could be totally interpreting something backwards here, but
Ms. Mayor, that's an error from administration. We originally had the first round of bylaw at 2 RVs, and lots of feedback in that what we heard report was that's too many.
thanks for that. Anything else on the recreational vehicle?
Sorry, that's a mistake. We missed it, just for clarity.
Anything else on the recreational vehicle topic?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The traffic bylaw, I know that I can have a friend come from out of town and park their RV in front of my house, plug in, but the maximum they can stay there, if my memory's correct, is 3 days before they have to move that trailer. That's part of that other bylaw that you're talking about. But I know the area that Mr. Simpson's talking about, not specific to one that has all the boats and everything on it, but I do know people that own property in that area, but they don't own the vacant property that's undeveloped, that's right next door to them. But they do maintain that property for the owner, like keeping the weeds down and keeping it tucked, but they're also storing their RV, their this or their that.
So
on
maybe,
that property.
yeah,
So
maybe that particular property needs to be dealt with through admin and bylaw and whatever the proper rules are at this point in time, realizing that it is affected by this bylaw.
yeah, because the bylaw where the land use bylaws specifically talking about taking your own RV and parking it in your personal driveway, not the lot that you don't own that's beside you. But anyway, other than that, I'd just like to see the other comments that were made tonight from the presenters to be readdressed, especially the one that does concern me, because I've got training in it, and that's the SEPTED stuff, the sight lines and all that when it comes to crime prevention. I'd like to have another look at that as well.
Thanks. Any other questions of clarification, Mr. Fisher, at this point in time? Okay, then would someone like to move to direct admin in some fashion?
Sure, give me 2 secs. Do it. They inadvertently closed my browser. I'll move the council directs administration to bring bylaw to number 2178 land use bylaw to the next council meeting for consideration of second and third reading.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Ford?
If you wouldn't mind a friendly amendment and ask administration to bring comments back from the presenters that we have this evening and their concerns.
Not that, but I think what they should bring back is a knowledge of the bylaw as it is, and then it's up to us to ask the questions in relation to the bylaw as it is. So, I mean, they've given us a fair amount of direction on what it means. I think it's I want time for my own refreshment of that. And I think at that point, administration can say, yes, the comment was valid or not valid. We can say, we think there's some validity here or not validity, whatever, those kind of comments. Yeah, that's just, I'm not explaining any further than that. So I think I think administration has generally been pretty good at bringing back or knowing the bylaw that they've brought to us and understanding what it means. And so
Okay, so the motion stands as it was originally.
Yeah.
Any other comments, other councilors? Okay, we've got a motion in front of us. Everyone understands the motion and its intent. So all those in favor? Opposed? None, it is carried. Thank you, Mr. Fisher and your staff and Ms. Modi. And also thank you, general public for coming and bringing forward comments as well as, listening.
Madam Mayor, could I have the last 43 seconds of my 5 minutes to just respond to Mr. Fisher?
We'll have to take it, as, this is a comment, just as part of ordinary general meeting, so, sure.
Thank you. He can correct me if I misunderstood, but I think what I heard him say is that these RV vehicles, at the back, actually, I want to be sure I understood this, that the reason to store them in town is that it makes them available in an emergency situation. Did I understand you, Mr. Fisher?
That's not the only reason.
No, but that's the reason, that's the one you stated.
I think that there's validity in that.
Oh, okay. Well, let me speak to that, because let's assume that there was an emergency. Peace River is not Grimshaw, where you have unlimited.
I just want to be really careful here, and not that I want to put any block on what you're saying, however. In a special meeting, I'm trying to be a hearing. We are only allowed to consider information that was brought up during that hearing. We
That's why
can't consider anything extraneous to that after. So in order to have it brought up, what I would recommend is that you write what you heard and your concerns to be brought up at the second and third reading, at which point it can be brought in and we can consider it. But at this point, we really, if you send it to us, it puts us in a really difficult consideration to get position of knowing something extraneous to the hearing, which we shouldn't know.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's
thank
why I asked if there
Yeah,
was.
I appreciate it very much. I appreciate your
Thank you very much.
understanding.
Oh, thanks everyone for clarifying that. There we go. Okay, so, would someone please move that we adjourn our meeting? Sure. Counselor Ford at 5:57. Thank you. All those in favor? Nice. Great, it is carried. Thank you.